Hey everybody, we're here today to talk about TikTok. I know there's been a lot in the news talking about if TikTok should be banned or if TikTok shouldn't be banned. We're here to talk about if maybe it should be banned. And like and subscribe. We'll like into this video why TikTok needs to be banned and here's why. Okay, so maybe it should be banned. Anyway, let's dive right into it, guys. This is the Holy Mike at EPG Studios, and I appreciate you guys checking out the EPG Studios channel with better quality videos than the Holy Mike channel and the EPG Gaming channel. EPG Studios, we just provide good content for you. So if you want good content, just make sure to come on down to us.
Alison Ray, Zach King, Bella Porch, and Mr. Beast. Right now, these social media stars are the most popular celebrities in the world. They use TikTok to provide us endless hours of seemingly harmless bite-sized entertainment, and they're making an insane living doing so. But what if I told you that these people were unknowingly involved in one of the most sinister geopolitical conspiracies the world has ever seen? Let me explain. It's no secret that TikTok is currently the driving force behind popular culture in the West. Every popularized song, meme, style, trend, development, and slang can be traced back to TikTok in some shape or form, because everyone you know is consuming its content. With all other social media platforms that were once the cusp of every trend and development in internet culture have now seemingly fallen behind the curve, and TikTok has taken the mantle, amassing over 1 billion current active users around the world, 80 million of which are in the United States alone. And with its growing hold over Generation Z in particular, it might be obvious why TikTok has grown to be a trend-setting powerhouse. And when you think about it, the youth are really the arbiters of popular culture, and so by providing a platform in which the youth can dictate content rapidly and instantaneously means the said platform now dictates popular culture. And although it's just one country, popular culture in the United States is extremely important. It's a pace setter for the Western world. What becomes popular in the United States quickly becomes popular everywhere else. And this is what makes TikTok and its most followed individuals extremely powerful, with the app mixing and homogenizing the world's entire culture. This process will only accelerate, as the average TikTok
I
user
never looked at
spends
it that
over an
way
hour and a half.
of them being extremely powerful. But yeah, that is true. I never looked at Western being like the most powerful of the actual a pop and that kind of stuff. So anyway, I didn't know that, to be honest with you.
From the app every single day, and 60% of TikTok users are from Generation Z. And as I'm sure you're all aware, TikTok has bled into everyday life on such an unprecedented scale, meaning that by now it has an immeasurable impact on people's culture and their personal lives. Now at first glance, popular TikTokers like Mr. Beast, Alison Ray, Zach King are just simply the youth driving culture as they always have, making fun, entertaining videos to be consumed and shared by the masses, creating trends that attract existing celebrities and people of older generations who fear being left out or left behind. However, what if I told you that it's not exactly Gen Z or influencers who are at the wheel driving popular culture at all, and maybe instead the wheel is being tightly gripped by the white-knuckled hands of a fascist government in a country that is one of the greatest threats to the United States? To understand what I mean by this, we first need to understand how TikTok came to be. Cue ByteDance. Founded in 2012 by Zhang Yiming, the Beijing tech company ByteDance began working on an algorithm that would change the world.
If you remember, well, Musically came first, and then it got bought out by ByteDance because Musically came first, and then it got bought out by ByteDance, and then but yeah, Musically was first. But I think he's probably trying to just go kind of more of how ByteDance got started. I think that's kind of what he's explaining right now, how ByteDance got started, and then we can go over there and how TikTok was started. Okay.
World has ever seen. Well, this started in 2017 when ByteDance acquired the Shanghai-based social media startup Musically. Through Musically's app, users could create 15-second to 1-minute music videos with their lip sync to popular songs and interacted with their communities. And ByteDance saw the value in combining this with the scroll-focused interface of their existing property Flippergram to create what we now know as TikTok. ByteDance had already seen the success of Vine, and they understood the power of these bite-sized videos. And by mixing all of these apps together, ByteDance was developing the perfect algorithm. And with its user-generated content now being rapidly fed in scrollable bite-sized pieces to the masses, TikTok became the perfect avenue for aspiring creators and influencers, providing anyone, anywhere, the opportunity to go viral like no one has ever seen. ByteDance tested out the formula in China first, attracting both content consumers and content creators in the span of just a couple of months, and soon the app took over the entirety of China. And that is when the Chinese government saw an incredible opportunity. But it's important you understand who the Chinese government really is. The Chinese Communist Party, or otherwise known as the CCP, has governed China since 1949, rising to power under leader Mao Zedong after a brutally fought civil war. Their mastery over the use of propaganda tactics to capture the minds of the people proved to be one of the most critical aspects of their success, with Mao Zedong heavily emphasizing the importance of controlling the culture to control the population. In his Great Cultural Revolution, Mao specifically focused his propaganda on certain idols, people who stood as examples of socialist heroes. Lei Feng and Dong Kangru were model soldiers who lived and died for their devotion to the state and its leader. Alongside these idols came mass censorship, state-controlled media, and the creation of imperialist enemies in the West. And since Mao, the CCP has
it
always
reminds me
cracked
so
down on
much of Hitler, to be
liberalization,
honest with you.
returning to the traditional ways of thought control
Of Hitler, the Chinese government does. Just putting it out there, okay? I'm not trying to start saying. I'm just putting it.
and censorship. And with that, the CCP employed a variety of propaganda techniques, including control of the media, and more specifically, the construction of role models to be emulated by the Chinese youth. Now, it's very important to remember this point later on. Anyway, fast forward to the current day, where the CCP has become one of the most successful dictatorships the world has ever seen, standing as the second largest political party in the world, with more than 96 million members under current leader Xi Jinping. His totalitarian government has sought to control every aspect of modern life. First, they offer the carrot. The impoverished masses are offered a promise they can escape poverty and hardship if they work just hard enough for the state. Cutthroat state exams with incredibly high fail rates ensure this dream only becomes true for a few. And in return for this opportunity, citizens are then expected to swallow the propaganda, accept the status quo, and stay out of the way of the ruling party. Which is why every part of communist Chinese culture is so strictly controlled to keep this narrative going. Social media, television, the news, entertainment, all of it is passed through the CCP's great filter. If you don't swallow the propaganda and play along, you end up in jail, or in one of China's re-education camps. Mao could only have dreamed of the control that Xi Jinping now has over his country. And the total control of culture that Mao Zedong once stressed so heavily is still so strong. With extreme surveillance monitoring and data gathering to create profiles on citizens, the CCP can then assign a social credit score to each individual. This allows them to do two things. It incentivizes their citizens to behave and effectively predicts the future in regards to those who will likely disobey. The other major facet of the CCP's control is enforced legislation that limits the influence of foreign media and access to the internet. Through these methods, the Chinese government is creating citizens that are both more efficient economically and more obedient politically than those of foreign nations, consolidating its position as the world's global superpower. And this leads on countries like Qatar or the United Arab Emirates buy their way into a European football club, they will then elevate the success and status of that club through excessive spending. And by doing this, they legitimize these countries. It normalizes these kingdoms and creates a fan base that is, in theory, loyal to defending these countries. However, this approach does backfire. It's often too obvious. By making such a public splash on the world stage through investment, you're opening yourself up to widespread.
Well, yeah, but see, one thing I just don't understand what their goal is, and we don't know what their full intention is. But my curiosity question is, what is the main intention? Because of the fact is that they can't, um, they want to influence their people to keep working, even though they may not succeed. Correct. So my question is what is it that what is it that TikTok is going to do for them to be able to overthrow the United States or any other government? That's what I'm very curious to find out.
With investments in major cultural pillars such as the NBA, Reddit, Spotify, Epic Games, and Activision Blizzard. And the Chinese government-run Tencent has used these ties to silence and limit the reach of discourse surrounding the genocide being carried out by the Chinese state, censoring any information about the Muslim Uyghur population being sent to concentration camps and the resulting protests in Beijing. And Huawei's no better. Documents have confirmed around the world that their consumer and business-facing surveillance products have been providing information to the Chinese government on an unprecedented level. And this is what's so effective about Chinese propaganda, because coming back to the sports example, Qatar spent hundreds of billions on their propaganda World Cup, only to see some of their image abroad worsen considerably. However, with China, they've been able to stay under the radar and quietly buy influence in other areas, and have seen all the benefits with very few drawbacks compared to countries like Qatar. And they very effectively use Tencent to suppress any foreign support for Hong Kong. In fact, there's a very good reason you've probably never heard of this. For example, in 2019, the president of the Philadelphia 76ers spoke out against China, and so Tencent stopped airing their games, and the club saw a significant portion of their revenue disappear, and were forced to make a public apology. And there's just so many countless instances of this I could go on forever, but all of these instances portray a much grander plan. By buying these investments in Western companies, China has suddenly gained the ability to sway public opinion and censor critics abroad. The solution here seems obvious, and you may be wondering why the Western world hasn't sought to limit China's ability to interfere with their media and technology infrastructure, in the same way they've done for other hostile governments such as North Korea's or Russia's. And the answer becomes clear when you take a closer look at the relationship China has cultivated with the Western world. You see, China has done a very effective job at projecting the image of being a somewhat liberalized nation to the eyes of the Western world. Furthermore, TikTok is reportedly willing to share more of its algorithm to avoid being banned in US states. According to this article published by the Wall Street Journal, TikTok tries to win allies in the US with more transparency in response to the ban on US government-issued devices. In the new proposed arrangement, US third-party monitors would check for video recommendation algorithms to detect whether it has been manipulated or if the Chinese government or other foreign actors have had access. And speaking of propaganda and media censorship, let's take a look at how this is being covered by other media outlets by using ground news, which I use to research topics like this. It's interesting to see that the Wall Street Journal was the first article to pick up the story, and that most of the sources reporting on it are from the US. We can see the Washington Examiner headlines the story as TikTok opening nearly $1.5 billion proposal to accommodate US regulators. The Evening Standard, as TikTok offers to share algorithm details in a bid to swerve US ban, and the New York Post. TikTok offers to have third-party monitoring if China spies on US users. It's also interesting to see that all of these sources are from right-leaning outlets, making the story a huge blind spot for readers reading left-leaning outlets, and that of these sources, 33% are owned by media conglomerates. And today you can check out the story at ground.news/moon to read more about it and subscribe to see all the features that I use to avoid bias in the media. Comparing the language used in each headline, we can get an idea of how language in the media can be used to shape our understanding of a story, and from this that the Chinese company is keeping in line with portraying an image of alliance to keep them from getting banned in the US. Since the 70s, the CCP's leaders have maintained appearances and played nice with the leaders of global superpowers, all in an effort to ensure national security and economic growth. And this is towards the US, with China now framing the West as an open enemy. But during this time, the West seemingly had much bigger things to worry about. The Western world was focused on Russia and the Middle East, all while the Chinese government was positioning itself perfectly. But then what was this for exactly? And what does the Chinese government have to gain from their publicity efforts? Well, it's not just freedom to exert economic or cultural influence. Those are just a means to an end. So then what's the end? Well, the end goal is the scariest part of all of this. The truth is that right now, China is preparing for war. China has a defense budget of over $270 billion US, and that number is steadily increasing with each year, with the Chinese government reportedly restructuring and ramping up their recruitment, promotion, and pay incentives for military personnel. There's also news of the Chinese military making lucrative offers to former officers of the British Air Force, all in an effort to bolster training methods. And although China hasn't yet initiated conflict, all signs point to it being a matter of time. I mean, you don't have to look very far into this to realize that the Chinese government has set their sights on Taiwan. There's a reason the Chinese government is threatening use of force if a peaceful consolidation of the two nations cannot be achieved. And to demonstrate this, China has been practicing invading. They've literally held combat drills in the air and sea around Taiwan 2 times in the past month, preparing to storm the presidential building in Taiwan, which China claims this is all to resolutely counter provocative actions of external forces and Taiwan independent separatist forces. But again, why is China doing this? What is the end goal here? Why do they want to absorb Taiwan? Well, there are many reasons, but one stands out in particular, and that being trade, one of the key pillars behind China's global dominance. Because Taiwan's GDP was
Yeah, I see a lot about trading and all that kind of fun stuff. I want to see if he goes right back into like talking about. Let's go kind of here. Yeah, I want to talk more about TikTok itself. Let's see if we can dive right into that.
them against the West. And whilst the summit might have seemed like Russia was the first regime to take advantage of this, China has been perfecting social media and internet manipulation for years. And the sinister tactics they've used to control their own segregated internet can easily be used abroad. All they needed was control of an online platform. And with its insane growth, TikTok is uniquely positioned to be the most powerful social media platform in the United States and across the world for the foreseeable future. And not only because of its growth either. TikTok's algorithm is perfectly designed to have these snowballing effects I mentioned. TikTok platforms certain people with ideas deemed popular enough and allows them to gain momentum very quickly. We trust TikTok to feed us content that is similar to our interests, even though there's no authority making sure it does so. I mean any TikTok user knows by now that the app is designed to fill hours upon hours of people's daily lives, which inevitably causes them to conflate what they see with their actual environment. And with this in mind, the capacity for users to be psychologically manipulated and ideologically driven on TikTok seems to be a feature and not a bug. And the alarming fact is that ByteDance, and by proxy the Chinese government, controls this algorithm entirely. They can create inputs that promote certain videos and limit the reach of others. And these algorithm changes can be subtle, happening overnight and without any sort of official notice. And everybody outside of ByteDance, even creators who have seemingly mastered this platform, are then in the dark about how exactly this algorithm works. And this gives the company free license to steer users down certain paths that benefit them and their associates. And let's not forget a point made earlier in the video. TikTok is particularly appealing to a younger, more impressionable audience. You may be thinking a possible negative effect on children and teenagers is a flaw of the internet in general and not really specific to TikTok. But TikTok is designed with a pillar of the CCP's original propaganda philosophy in mind, the construction of role models. There's a reason why China's version of TikTok, Douyin, is so different from the version they send to the rest of the world. If you're a child under the age of 14 in China, Douyin shows you the educational videos like science experiments and museum exhibits, with the rest of Chinese TikTok showing hard-working everyday civilians helping their country and sacrificing for the greater communist good. And yet if you're that same child in the United States, TikTok shows you sex, vandalism, crime, social disruption, and other dopamine-satisfying degenerate clips. And when preteens in the US and China were surveyed, asking what is the most aspirational career they hope to achieve, the #1 answer in the US was to be a social media influencer, while in China, it was to be an astronaut. Which is why it's clear that Mao's old method of creating idols has been turned
That is obviously crazy. That is so crazy.
They make their domestic version a spinach version of TikTok, while they ship the opium version to the rest of the world.
What China uses to unify their population culturally is now being used to sow dissent and weaken the population of the West. And it's evident that the role models that Generation Z is exposed to almost always come from TikTok. But it's not just the idea that these TikTokers have social influence that makes them so useful to the CCP. It's the idea that they have economic influence. In just over 4 years since its launch in the United States, TikTok has become its own industry. Individuals are making their entire incomes on TikTok. Mainstream celebrities are now using TikTok to maintain relevancy and revive their careers. Major companies are now hiring entire teams of people solely dedicated to TikTok, all in order to market their products. And the beauty of TikTok for the CCP.
So guys, this is a lot of things, a lot of important things. So comment below what you feel about everything, how you feel about it, and if you felt it was something important, or if you thought anything was overreacted. But anyway, guys, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. We'll see you in the next one. Today's video is sponsored by Skylight Records. Skylight Records' new store on Etsy is live on Walmart.com, Etsy, and eBay. All you gotta go is to link in the link tree, the 2 top links in the top. We'll hook you up with the best merchandise and items from Skylight Records has to offer. So make sure to go check them out on the link tree, on the Instagram page, or in the description of this video. The best merchandise you'll ever find. Thank you. And we appreciate Skylight Records for sponsoring this video. Thank you so much.